Hello, end users, and welcome to the show. This is the End User Report. I'm Clarence.
And I'm Lisa.
And in today's show, we're going to talk about some of the excerpts that have been released from the upcoming Steve Jobs biography. And we're going to take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. But before we actually get into that, we're actually going to respond to a comment we got on one of our older shows. It was actually about the Xperia Play and the PSN hack. Crazy09 writes in, says, I am very disappointed with this review. It seems that you guys have it in for Sony in general. Yes, Sony screwed up with the PSN, but I think that the welcome back package was quite good. You cannot expect a system to be unhackable. Look at that teenager in England who hacked into the CIA database. Yes, there were some problems getting back online, but when it opened up, millions of people tried to get on all at once. The massive influx is expected to slow down the system. Okay. I disagree. I strongly disagree. I think the idea that 2 free games for having my credit card information stolen is laughable. And Sony just has to do better. Yeah. So there was a massive influx. So the thing had been down for a month. Of course there's going to be a massive influx. And having it in for Sony, I don't think you watched the full podcast where I even came out and said I was considering buying a PS3. So, yeah, I strongly disagree. I think Sony's got to do better, especially when it's people's information that they're dealing with. And no one came out and said that a system should be unhackable. We came out and said that one hack shouldn't shut down the whole entire network for the span of a month.
Amen.
But comments are always welcome. Thanks for checking us out there, Crazy09. But let's get into the show here, and let's talk about some of the quotes that we've been hearing out of the Steve Jobs biography that's going to be coming up. That's actually coming out tomorrow. That's October 24th. And you can actually pre-order it right now. I believe Barnes & Noble has it at a price of $16.99. But some of the excerpts, and we've seen this often with books, have been released early. Among other things, Jobs comes out and says that Android is a stolen product, and says that Microsoft is mostly irrelevant. Lisa, your feelings on that?
Well, first of all, I don't think that Microsoft is irrelevant. I think that, listen, Steve Jobs had a problem sort of sharing the playground with the other kids, so to speak. I think one of the most shocking things about the book is how much animosity he still had towards people like Eric Schmidt, like Bill Gates. There's a big issue right now with Eric Schmidt said, hey, listen, me and Steve Jobs were on good terms after I left Apple, that I was still getting invites to swanky dinners and private parties, and, you know, we were respectful of both being, involved in the same industry, trying to, elevate the status of technology. And in one of the experts, not only does he talk about Android being a stolen product, but how he'll spend his quote-unquote last dying breath and all of Apple's money, if necessary, to literally light a match to what is Google and Android.
Well, he said destroy Android.
Right, yeah, I mean, he basically talks about bombing it like it was World War II and it was dropping the A-bomb on Hiroshima. And he talks about Bill Gates and says how if Bill Gates, quote-unquote, had
done some harder drugs,
that he would have, been more, he would have been more in touch with the younger generation. So I'm not shocked. I mean, by Steve Jobs. This is not a guy who was ever known as sort of playing nice, but...
Well, I don't think anyone gets to where Steve Jobs gets to and is nice about it. As far as the whole doing drugs quote, we know drugs made the Beatles better. Whether or not it would help Gates, I don't know. As far as Android is concerned and it being stolen property, I don't know about it being stolen, but it's definitely borrowed. A lot of the ideas that are present in Android are, what we saw on the iPhone first. And I can understand why Jobs is a little upset. I mean, if you come up with this idea, which we know that Jobs is credited in doing here, and then all of a sudden a new starter starts making some cheddar based on your ideas, yeah, you're going to be a little bit upset about it. Now, is he a little bit more than upset? Yes. He talks about destroying Android.
The problem with that, though, is that you have to sort of realize is that within certain industries, you're going to see that. This is not creating the wheel, so to speak.
Well, you're going to see that with every industry. We see it in the video game industry where the Wii came out with motion controls, PlayStation and Xbox followed suit. Borrowed ideas. Right. It makes I think it makes technology better.
Oh yeah, I mean you can break it down to, the major shoe companies. When Nike signed Jordan and had him as the marquee face of their brand, they were leading the pack, so to speak, in making player brand identification, and it led to Adidas, Reebok, all the other sporting companies saying we have to follow suit. Prior to that, it was just show a bunch of people wearing your shoes, and if they look cool, kids will buy them.
Yeah, remember the swoosh the swoosh on your shoes.
Remember
makes you
the Reebok
faster.
pump?
Yeah, I remember that.
All of that.
But to the second point, him saying Microsoft is irrelevant. I actually going to say it's headed that way. Maybe not right now, but it's definitely headed that way. A lot of people now are moving towards mobile options for their computing. And, the one thing that I do not hear, I don't hear Windows. I hear Android and I hear, iOS. We see the commercials for Windows, but I can guarantee you, if somebody held up a phone that had Windows operating system, people would have no clue. They would have no idea.
I'm going to say this about Microsoft. They may be irrelevant, but I'm going to add very cautiously for now. I think Microsoft is at a position where they can go into sort of a hibernation state a bit briefly. I mean, this is not Bill Gates has X million dollars and he can now just sit back and only hang out with the charity. They're definitely going to be involved in the scope and realm of technology. They may go the route of IBM and then have a very segmented market that they control. IBM, yeah, you're not buying an IBM computer for your house anymore, but if you're doing cancer research, you've got IBM software on that computer. It's sort of which scope do you want to be involved in? Do you want to have that ability to say, because of our software, we helped find a potential cure for cancer? Or do you want to have every end user, involved in your products? That may be what Microsoft does.
I don't know. I think it's a little bit too early to say that right now. Desktop computers and laptops, as long as they are prevalent in people's households, Microsoft's going to be around, I think. But again, the shift right now is towards tablets, smartphones, and right now Windows is just not a major player in those markets. If they want to stick around and be as prevalent as they have been, they need to get their feet wet in those markets and grab a piece of that market share. But right now, saying that they're irrelevant, a little bit early for that, but it's definitely headed that way, I think. Let's move on to the device that we're talking about this week, and that's the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. This was at one time referred to as the Nexus Prime. They dropped the Prime. It was announced officially this week that it is going to be out on Verizon, maybe Sprint too. Here are the specs. It's going to have a 4.65-inch Super AMOLED screen. Weighs about 4.76 ounces. It's got a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core processor. It's going to be running Android 4.0, aka Ice Cream Sandwich. It's actually going to be the first phone running that. 5-megapixel camera. It's going to be able to record in full 1080 HD. 1 gigs of memory, It's either going to have 16 or 32 gigs of onboard storage. It really hasn't been confirmed which one yet. Going to have a 1750 milliamp battery. Not sure yet if that's going to be removable or not. It probably is. Bluetooth 3.0, of course, built-in Wi-Fi. And this is going to be 4G, LTE, or Pentaband HSPA, depending on what market you're in. Your thoughts so far on what you're hearing about the Nexus?
Well, I certainly know that there's a lot of buzz around the ice cream sandwich OS. Assuming that there are no drastic issues with it, I definitely think that it'll be interesting to see how it does. My only concern is, while I do think that a 1080p video capture resolution quality is beautiful, I worry that Verizon has been flooding the market with so many new phones recently that unless you're a devotee to this ice cream sandwich processing system, you may just choose another option for a phone. But that being said, again, as long as there's no real hiccups, I mean, certainly if it ends up being one of those things like RIM with the playbook and with the BlackBerry in general, where it's crashing, they're done. I mean, they nailed the coffin in there, or put the final nail in their coffin, so to speak, a couple of weeks ago. As long as Ice Cream Sandwich doesn't have any of those type of hiccups, you'll get some people who will buy it strictly because it's the new processor. I want to be cutting edge, but...
Well, do you think it can compete with the iPhone 4S? I know everyone says that question, and the fact of the articles I see iPhone killer, I think, are overstated at this point, because at this point, everything's trying to compete, trying to compare itself to the iPhone. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are this. First of all, 3/4 of the people who have iPhones only have iPhones because they think they're supposed to have iPhones. I bet you, I'll go out there and say it. Your average Verizon user did not buy the iPhone because they knew what it could do. They just bought it because it's been ingrained in their minds to think Verizon, iPhone, trendy, iPhone, cool. So it's part of Apple brand association. If you want to be young and hip, you go to Apple. Myself personally, I honestly find an iPhone as a phone kind of cumbersome. I don't feel that it responds quite well myself. To me, I would look at the specs on it, and I feel like Apple could have given a better camera, especially considering they're talking about how you can take such crisp and clear photos. Okay, but you don't have the best camera in the game. You have a slow to respond shutter with regards to your cameras. This phone has a zero lag shutter, which to the average person, they may not know what that means, but that means that when your kid is out on the football field and you want to take some pictures, as soon as you touch that button, there's no delay. That's an attractive feature for some people.
Well, the iPhone 4S solves some of those problems, and actually it has been noted that the pictures on the iPhone 4S are actually quite good and an improvement over the iPhone 4. I don't think that this can actually compete with the iPhone 4S, just because, again, like you said, brand association, and now it's gotten to the point where a lot of Android, it's seen as more for the techies and the nerds, but you know what? I'm fine with that. I like Android. As far as this phone, like you said, this is going to be the first phone running Ice Cream Sandwich, and again, the first time that they come out with an operating system, there is some unforeseen issues. There always are. I think that Android's going to be okay. They've done this before. I think that Ice Cream Sandwich is going to be more of a polished product than something like Honeycomb was, that was more made for tablets. There is going to be a revamped UI, new camera controls, improved multitasking. You can actually resize some of the widgets a little bit better. So I got good feelings going into this. The one misstep I do see, though, is the camera. It's only 5 megapixels. I would expect a little bit better at this point. It's not a major deal breaker, but I think it's something that should have been looked at a little bit closer. Really, the highlight of this phone is going to be the HD display, that screen. It's going to be the first phone with the Super AMOLED screen, which, if you've dealt with AMOLED screens in the past before, you know that they're really bright, really beautiful displays, i.e. something like the Samsung Fascinate, which is a phone that has that. Versus the iPhone 4, the thing that this really has going for it is the 4G. The iPhone 4S isn't a 4G phone. This one is, and that seems to be a big push. It's not a deal breaker for me whether it does or it doesn't have 4G. I think it's going to be, for me, it'd be more a comparison of iOS 5 versus Ice Cream Sandwich. So definitely a phone to watch. Again, people, this is the same thing as the Nexus Prime. They dropped the Prime a while ago, so there are some people who actually think that these are two different devices. They're not. So definitely, I think this is a phone to keep an eye on.
Agreed.
Well, let's move on to our final segment of the show, and we call Showing Some Love. And this is where we shout out, give some respect to something we've seen this week. So what do you got this week?
Well, what I'm going to show some love to is a little game that can prove to you that despite Guitar Hero and Rock Band oversaturating and flooding the market, that there are a few games in that realm and scope that don't entirely suck. And the game that I'm going to talk about is Def Jam Rapstar. It was released back in 2010. And the thing that's nice about this game is that it is specific to a genre, and yet at the same time it offers a much broader mix than Rock Band and Guitar Hero. And here's why I will say that. Both Rock Band and Guitar Hero had problems from what I can see, and it's pretty evident with getting the rights to a lot of songs from certain bands. So what you had was 4 Nirvana tracks, 4 Aerosmith tracks, 4 Ozzy Osbourne tracks, and every time they got some new singer or band to agree to allow them to put those songs in their Rock Band library or Guitar Hero library, it became 4 of their songs, not just a broader mix. What I like about Rapstar is because of the fact that rap has really been prevalent since Rapper's Delight, you could argue Sugar Hill Gang, for those of you who, I don't know, live in your mom's basement and eat Hot Pockets and aren't allowed to turn on the radio without permission. It spans the entire scope of rap, so that instead of a short segmented area, you really have songs from the early 80s, early 90s, and then your current hits that make you want to buy the album if you're a rap fan. There's also a lot of downloadable content, which was a problem for Rock Band and Guitar Hero, that people would find some things in the downloadable content that they wanted to get, but then there were issues with it transferring over between the games. The same artists over and over. Not really being able to have a broad library. So I definitely enjoy this game because you can go for the salt and pepper, realm of rap, or you can get into the really gritty Rick Ross.
Oh, you just want Lil Wayne songs the whole time. You just sing all Lil Wayne songs. But I'm going to actually show love to a game, too, and I'm going to go with Dark Souls. Advertised as the hardest game ever made. Not sure if that's true or not, but I probably died about 50 times. Just running around, not knowing where I'm going. But you know what? I'm fine with that. It's a really great game. It's really dark. Quite far in it now. But bosses aren't getting any easier. So, action RPG. So, check it out. It's the sequel to Demon Souls. Definitely a good game. Having a lot of fun.
I'd like to thank the people on YouTube who help out and prevent this one from going nuts and breaking stuff by showing how to.
Oh, it's past breaking stuff. You die now, it's kind of expected. But that wraps it up here for us at the End User Report. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and Facebook, Twitter. You can also follow the blog on WordPress, all under the End User Report. This is Clarence.
And this is Lisa.
Peace.
Bye.